Well, hey guys, it's Michael here. Today we're going to be doing a review on the YESWELDER MIG 205 DS. It's a multi-process machine. It's MIG, stick, and DC TIG. It's also dual voltage inverter. So let's get into the review. Alright, one of the first things we'll cover before I plug it in is not only is it a multi-process machine, but it's also a multi-voltage, so it runs off of 110. It comes with this little adapter to do 220. We'll be running off of 220 today in the shop. So let's plug this thing in, turn it on. We'll go over some of the cord lengths, some of the features, some of the nice things it has, some of the downsides. Also, what you might have to buy if you get this machine to start welding out of the box. So one of the first things I want to cover is lead lengths. In case you're going to buy this machine or interested, it's kind of good for you to have a good understanding what comes with it. And for you guys that are very impatient and want to see welding, I'll put some times down below here for the MIG, stick, and TIG welding if you want to just jump right to it. The MIG lead is about 9.5 feet long, has a fairly well-built gun for it. It's a Euro plug-in. I'm kind of new to this style, but it's super common in case you want to change the leads or get a longer one. They're common on Amazon, eBay. It's got DINS 50 up front, so that's super common as well. If you want to make longer leads, you can. Stick lead is nothing crazy high-end, but it works just fine. Again, it's DINS 50. They're 10 feet. This is really common. It kind of looks like across the board of all the things I've seen from multi-process machines that sell for under $1,000. And it'll work for you for a while. If you burn it up, you can always apply for replacement somewhere online, but it'll get you welding for now. Again, DINS 50. Ground clamp is actually 10 feet. It's definitely better than the clamp that came on the Titanium 200. That's the welder I use all the time in my shop. But it's not high end by any means, but for another 10 or 15 bucks when you burn this one up, you can always buy a replacement down the road. Again, it will fully get you welding. It does come with the gas line. It's probably, actually I haven't measured this one, probably 6 feet, somewhere in that range. And out of the box, it does not come with a regulator, it does not come with a TIG torch, and it does not come with any wire. But that's pretty simple. All those things are easy to pick up. I'll put a link below in the description for a regulator, a TIG that fits right on this thing, and some other helpful little tools and features if you're interested in that. It came with a simple little paper manual. There's not much good information in here, and you might get something out of it. I'll go over the process of using the machine. It's pretty simple once you start picking around with the buttons. Came with consumable tips for the MIG. It's very simple to find these almost anywhere. Home Depot sells them. I'm sure Lowe's sells them. Lincoln Electric at Home Depot for sure. Harbor Freight sells them. Came with 2 roller wheels. This one here is the kind of notched one for running flux wire, and the one that's in here is for smooth for running solid wire. And you can run 023, 030, and 035 wire in it. And now we're going to get on to some of the things that didn't come with this machine, which is a regulator and a TIG torch. So here's a little regulator I purchased on Amazon. Like I said, no regulator comes with this machine. This is something else I purchased online. It's actually from YESWELDER, but it cost me like 11 bucks. It's pretty good for a little stubby gas lens kit for a TIG torch. And the TIG torch I ordered online, and it's actually pretty good quality. It's just a number 17 manual torch. I ordered it one day. I was busy. I just hit order on something. I didn't look into the details, and this torch was actually for smaller. It's a DINS 25. It wasn't for this machine. I should have paid more attention. I was in a hurry. The TIG torch actually cost only 50 bucks. It wasn't bad. I didn't feel like sending it back because it was my mess up. I ordered the wrong one. I'll put the link below to the proper torch for this machine with DINS 50. But it got me around to doing something, and I ordered a bunch of male and female DINS 25 and DINS 50 plugs, and basically I made a bunch of these adapters, and I got an extra bunch of lugs around for making longer leads for ground leads and things like that. So I ended up doing a little workaround because it was DINS 25 and I needed it to be DINS 50. $50 or so for the torch, another 10 for the stubby gas lens kits, which I think these make a world of difference, especially if you're starting out learning. You can use less shielding gas, and it just makes it a little easier for me to see the weld. So it's got a nice little metal drive in here. Actually, the drive looks identical to the titanium drive that I have on my Unlimited 200. I heard some people say that you can't run small spools on this machine, the 1 to 2 pound spools. It's running on here no problem. I don't know if it's a design change they made, but I know this model right here is running a 2 pound spool no problem. Of course, you can run the 10 to 12 pound spools in it as well. I wanted to mention to you guys that YESWELDER actually did send this thing out to me. I did not pay out of pocket for it. They offered it, said, would you like to do a review on this thing? Did not accept any money, just a free welder. And I'm going to give you my 100% honest opinion on this machine. The things I like, the things I don't like. Keep in mind, guys, I've spent thousands of dollars on welders paying out of pocket to do reviews. And just because I got this one for free does not mean I'm going to change my honesty on it. So I'm going to give you guys the pluses and minuses on this machine towards the end of the video once we wrap it all up, what I like and what I dislike. Alright, let's go over the settings and start MIG welding. I got the gas line hooked up to my regulator and I got it 75-25 argon CO2 blend running about 10 cubic feet per hour. We're going to fire it up now and go over some of the settings. One of the things I want to mention is I really wish they would have put a variable fan on here so it was silent until you start welding. It would ramp up and then ramp down. That's one of my kind of gripes on some of these machines. This is actually a fairly quiet fan on here, which is nice. I can talk over it pretty easy. It's mainly a gripe to me because I do these YouTube videos and it seems like my microphone picks up the fan better than it picks me up. Let's get into the settings. Now this little machine actually has some really cool features, just convenient little features for especially its price point. It's a multi-process machine for under $400, which is pretty nice. Like I said, the gun seems like pretty good quality. Drop test. It's fine, it's going to handle plenty of damage like that, it's going to hold up for a long time. But it actually has this little gas button here, which is kind of cool. You push it, it says gas on. Basically, it will cycle your gas solenoid for like 3 seconds so you can dial in your regulator to make sure that it's the right gas flow you want. It's not necessary, but it is a nice little feature. Another nice feature it has is a wire spool button, which does not cycle gas, but if you want to cut off a little bit of wire on the end of it, push it down for a few seconds and it feeds out wire really slowly. If you actually run a new spool in here and you want to feed a bunch of wire through fast, you hold it down for after a few seconds, it'll go into high speed mode. And watch this. There it goes, ramps up. So that's kind of a nice feature. You can spool through the wire a lot quicker like that. So the T2 and T4 are something I really don't use on any of my machines that have had it before. I don't really find it to be that useful, but it has that option if you want it. It's on T2. This is what we're all used to when you're running. When you pull the trigger on your MIG lead, it runs the wire out. As soon as you release it, the wire stops. You put it on T4, when you pull the trigger on, you can start welding, you can release the trigger and it keeps feeding wire out for long welds, and you pull the trigger in once again and release it and it'll stop the wire. Like I said, I don't really ever use that feature, but it's on here. I think some people suggest it's for TIG, so you can push a button to start the TIG and then stop the button, but this is a manual lift torch, so it doesn't really have that feature on here, so it's strictly for MIG. So next up, we got our multi-process settings for your settings. So the first is MIG CO2. So if you're running 100% CO2, you want to go on this setting because it's actually slightly different than running CO2 and argon. This machine auto sets for you. There are manual controls in it, but the auto set actually works pretty well in here. That's another cool feature you're getting at this price point, which is pretty awesome, is the auto set machine. I'll go ahead and into some of the downsides of the auto set machine in a little bit once we get a little further in the video. The next one is MAG, which I had to do a little research why that was, and basically that's 75-25 argon. Next one is stick. And the cool thing, you see these numbers changing a little bit up here. Basically, that's telling volts, and this is telling amps. If you start welding at, say, 75 amps with stick, but then you go back to your MIG gun setting, it will memorize what your MIG gun amperage and voltage and all that stuff was set to. So that's kind of a cool thing. Next one is lift TIG, and that's one thing, I'm gonna be a little spoiler alert on this machine. It actually had a really good lift start. Out of all the lift start machines I've used, the lift start on this one and stopping works way better. I've had my titanium where they claim it's a lift start and it feels like the tungsten gets stuck constantly. It feels more like a scratch start machine. And this one, you set it down, you lift up, it starts very smoothly, and you don't have to pull away too far to break the arc. The titanium would just like arc really far out. This thing seems to cut off the arc once it gets out a little ways, and you can bring it back in to shield the weld. We'll get into more of that when we start TIG welding. And the last setting is gasless. The gasless setting is basically for your flux wires. So if you just get this machine, you're new to welding, and you don't have a regulator and you don't have a welding bottle yet, you're going to want to pick up yourself a spool of flux wire, put in the grooved stepped rollers. They're not smooth grooved, they got like little notches in them because that's for your flux wire. And you're going to run on this. Today we're going to be running 75-25 mix and solid wire. So we're going to go back over to here to MAG, and we got the next setting over here is we're going to select your MIG wire diameter. And the good thing about this, they give you metric and thousandths, so you got imperial settings as well. So you got 023, 030, and 035, and they got the metric equivalent right next to it. We went over most of the settings, other than up here we got a button kind of hidden under this thing. This is a nice digital encoder. It is not a push button, but it feels like a pretty good quality digital encoder, aluminum knob. And basically up here you have a few settings. If you're running on MIG, you can dial in your amps right here, and it tells you your voltage right here. It will auto set your wire speed for you, which is pretty nice. But you have an auto function on here. You dial in your metal thickness, and it's as simple as this. Right here, this number gives you your metal thickness. The drawback to this machine is that's in millimeters. It's a metric machine. It could have been as easy as inside the door, they could have put a cheat sheet, metric equivalent to gauge thickness, or 1/8 inch, or whatever you're welding, 1/16 inch. It would have been really nice. All it could be is a simple sticker. So yes, welder, if you guys are checking this out, please do a nice conversion chart inside for common gauge thickness, because that's the downside. I got a caliper that will measure in millimeters and bounce and do fractions and thousandths, so I can do the conversion for it. But the auto set in millimeters isn't too useful for us in the US if you're selling this machine. Basically, you got your millimeters, you got your volts, and then over here you have a -10 and +10 basically, and that is some manual controls on it. I know it sounds complicated, but basically if you auto set this machine to what you think it should run, but it just doesn't seem like the wire's feeding right, you can play around with that +10 and -10. Usually you only have to go off like +4 or -4 to fine tune it. If you have an ear for it, you'll hear it kind of sounds like that bacon frying in a pan, people like to refer to it as. And the final setting, which is really nice, is inductance. It goes +10, -10. I think I run around 5 or 6 is a good inductance level. It kind of makes your welds a little smoother, and if you go minus, it'll kind of make them a little hard edge. You can fine tune that for different kind of weld characteristics if you want. Alright, so I don't have any actually fun welding projects going on today, so we're just going to weld on some little coupons, a little piece of metal here. I have some 1/8 inch and some 1/4 inch. Because this machine sets in metric for auto set, you can usually just dial in your voltage getting in the ballpark. This is 3.2 millimeter thick for the 1/8 inch. So all you have to do is push this button twice, and we're going to dial in so it says 3.2 up here. Looks like it's going to be running 19.3 volts. That's right around the right voltage. It's claiming 162 amps. Seems a little high to me, but we'll see how it welds. All right, let's get started. Alright, we got some 1/4 inch here. We're going to max this thing out. Actually, I'm running 030 wire. I'd rather have 035 in here, but it's the wire I have loaded up, so we're going to run it. So, maxed out 205 amps, 20.7 volts. Let's give it a try. So basically, first off, I want to try the box stock settings on auto set for 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch. And I kind of felt like they were running on the hot side of things. Definitely the voltage and amperage rate out was really high. I kind of look at most welders as that just being kind of numbers to reference the welder by. All welders run different. Some run hotter, some run colder. But got me thinking about it, so I decided to do a little cut and acid etch test and cut some of these components down and looked at them, and you really can get a good idea what's going on inside the weld that way. And got me thinking about it. I looked at a Miller-Matic 200 my friend has and checked out the graph for it. And for 1/8 inch with 030 wire, definitely a lot lower amperage and voltage. I tried out a few more welds and did some more acid etch tests here and checked out the results. Basically, the YESWELDER is on the high side of voltage and amperage for the auto set. The Miller is on the low side, and my titanium welder runs somewhere in the middle, and I'm kind of thinking the middle ground is kind of where I'm going to be happy with running this machine. Just dialing in the voltage once I kind of come up with my own range that I'm happy with and do a little bit more acid etch tests. Because basically a weld can look nice on the outside, but you really got to get into it and see what's going on inside to see how much it's really penetrating that base metal there. Alright, we'll get on to the next process of this machine. So we're going to hook it over to a stick lead now. So basically all you need to do is unplug this terminal that takes your positive to your MIG block inside, and we hook up our stick lead. We're going to be welding 7018 electrode positive, and all you have to do is cycle it down until you have a little stick on here, and we're going to dial this thing up a little bit. 90 amps. Alright, got some 3/32, 7018 rod, things set to 90 amps. Tell you guys the truth, I don't stick weld very often. I can, but I don't really prefer it. If I was actually doing much stick welding, packing things together, I prefer 6013. It just starts and arcs and just tack welds way better. But 7018 is the kind of standard go-to. As you know, we left the metal kind of rusty, cleaned it up just a little because stick welding, you can kind of get away with a little bit dirty metal, outdoor projects, working on tractors and things like that. Alright, let's get welding. Once it cools, we'll chip that slag off and bring you guys in for a closer look. Well, there you go. As you guys know, I don't really stick weld much on my channel. This is 3/16 and it welded just fine. If I was in the right setting, if it's windy out and I had to do some work outdoors and I was welding on some rusty metal, probably grab the stick welder, especially like tractor implements, things like that. But most of the stuff I do inside my shop, I roll to the MIG, on occasional TIG machine. But MIG's my go-to for most of the stuff I need to do with thinner metals. Let's get on to the TIG welding. So we're going to hook up a TIG torch. Keep in mind the torch I ordered was the wrong one with the DINS 25, so I have an adapter I built for it. You guys wouldn't have to if you ordered the right torch. The torch is about 50 bucks. The Pyrex stubby gas lens kits I prefer. It does come with ceramic kits. Basically, it comes with everything other than consumables like tungsten if you want to weld with the original torch, but I ordered the glass ones. Basically, we just connect our ground or our work clamp, and we're going to hook that to the positive terminal block, and we're going to hook up our torch to the negative. Then we're going to push this little button up here to lift TIG, and we're about 90 amps. That's good for 1/8 inch. We're going to weld some square tubing because TIG welding is a little more delicate. Metal has to be 100% clean. No mill slag, no nothing. We'll go into a little more detail, do a little how to kind of basically get started with TIG down the road, but we also have to hook up our argon. We'll set the gas. I'll tell you guys the settings I like for that. So this is just 1.5" square tubing, 1/8 inch, and I went down and beveled these wider joints on these 45s. The reason I picked 45s is it gives you good practice for TIG welding because it gives you quite a few different joint options when you start welding. And then this side we're going to change the amperage down on this, and inside joint we will turn the amperage up a hair. We'll go into more detail when we're welding here. Oh, another thing is clean, clean, clean. You always hear about clean TIG welding when you weld aluminum. Steel is just as picky, so you can go through it with a flap disc and grind off the mill slag on here, or you can take it to a wire wheel, and that's 100% key, because if you get little sparks and splatters, it's because you got mill slag on it or rust. So we're going to first start off and tack weld this. Beauty with the little TIGs is just tack welding things. I have my 100% argon set to about 15 cubic feet per hour. That's with the stubby gas lens kit. If you don't have those, you're welding with purplish style ceramic cups. You might have to go closer to 20. Ideally, you don't have the welder right here. The fan ports are blowing out the front and the other side. You don't want to have it sitting where the fan's blowing across this at all, because I guarantee you'll start getting sparks. You probably have bad gas cover. So right now we're not going to use any filler rod. We're just going to touch down and lift off and tack weld this. Turn on your gas valve. Simple as that. See how I touched it, lifted it off, it arced, and then when I was ready done with the tack, I lifted it away to break the arc, and then kept the gas over the point just to shield it as it cools down. That's all there is to tacking with steel. So we're going to go tack weld the other side and start welding here. So we're going to go down these beveled flat parts on top and the bottom of this thing with 1/16 inch welding rod. We're set to about 90 amps. See how I break the arc, bring it back in, get a little bit of gas over that again to just shield it. Alright, flip it around and do the other side, and then we'll get to the sharp edge and we'll get to the inside edge. Now we're going to weld this inside edge. We're going to crank the amps up to about 100. And we got some 3/32 we're going to be using for filler rods just to fill that in a little bit better. Now we're going to do this last edge. We're not going to use any filler rod at all. We're going to turn it down to maybe, let's say, 75 amps. And we're just going to run over it with the TIG, and it should melt that edge right over really nice without any filler rod. All right, I'll bring you guys in for a closer look. Nearing the end of the video, I really want to go over the pros and cons with this machine. Is it the best multi-process welder available on the market? No. But is it one of the best values of a multi-process welder on the market? I think so. I don't think I've seen anything else better value, and it actually works really well. Stick welds really well, buttery smooth with the MIG, lots of little settings for that. And TIG welding, for being a simple DC TIG, it lift starts really well. It lift starts better than most of the other machines I've ever used. So yeah, that is a really good one for entry level because you're not sticking the TIG. It just does what you need to do. You start it and lift it off and it starts welding, no problem. I think that's a great thing. We're going to go into a few negatives about the machine that I think YESWELDER can improve upon pretty easy. One is basically it was packaged fairly well, but when I got it, the door was bent like this out of the package and they were hanging out a ways, and I thought that's kind of a little introduction to the machine. So the door is banged up from some cables in here. All I did was flex the door in, and that was fine. It is under $400 for this machine, so you got to give it some slack for that. But the body works a little on the thin side. So I think they can improve upon that. Some of my other welders had plastic on the back as well, so if you bumped it into something, it's kind of a little more protected than denting the metal very easy. For the price point, it's not bad. One of the things I think that can improve upon the most is this machine is for the metric market. Everything's in millimeters, and for welding and setting it up, it can be a little difficult in the States. YESWELDER, all you guys need to do is pay somebody to figure out the settings on here, dial them in, cut acid etch test, make sure it's getting good penetration, it's working well, and put a nice little graph inside here with those settings on it. It's got to be for 023, 030, and 035 wire for MIG. Basically, just set something in here that shows like, okay, I'm welding 14 gauge. You dial it into this many volts, it should be auto set pretty well running. If you're going to be welding 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch. Say I'm going to be welding 1/4 inch with 035 wire. The settings probably going to be maxed out, but you get the point. Basically, make sure you have some good settings on a sticker inside the door. You can open it up, dial in it into the proper voltage, you're good to go. That is the biggest gripe I have to say, especially for the price point of this machine. Somebody might be getting it has never really dialed in welders. I can hear and I can see and I can tell what the machine needs to be set to. But if you're new to welding, especially for the price point of this one, they might be a little confused on how to set this machine up. That's the biggest gripe. So that's basically all I have negative to say about it. It welds really well. It's got a lot of nice features, and for the price, it's really hard to beat. I don't think there's anything else even close on the market. This thing, I think it was around $380 something. I could be wrong. There'll be links below to Amazon where you can find these things. For under $400, yeah, you need to buy a regulator. That's $30 to $40 for something on Amazon. A TIG torch is gonna set you back $50, but you're doing pretty good for a welder like that. It's a pretty affordable machine. It's probably the best multi-process affordability on the market. Like I say with every inverter welder review I've done, time will tell on these things. That titanium that I've been running for 20 months, rock solid, it's been holding up good. This thing, time will tell. I have about 8 hours in on it so far, using it at my work. It's worked really well. You're gonna see this thing throughout the winter. I'm gonna be using it a lot. I wanna get some hours on it and see how it holds up. I'm sure you guys wanna see how it holds up from 6 months from now. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. Another thing, I went over a few tips for TIG welding. I've only learned how to TIG about 2 years ago, but it's one of those things that some people have a hard time figuring out, and I've jumped through the hurdles. I've dealt with using the wrong gas and having mistakes and all this different stuff. And I'm going to show you guys what not to do and what to do to get yourself TIG welding easy, and makes the learning curve a lot easier. So keep an eye out for that video coming up in the near future. That's going to be helpful if you've never TIG welded before or if you're just learning. Alright you guys, take care. Thanks for checking out the video. Bye.